You're listening to the Savoir Faire audio experience.
Are you ready?
The Savoir Faire experience is your guide to everything that has to do with lifestyle. From dating, rides, style, and entertainment. All brought to you by the editor of Savoir Faire magazine, Robert White. Anything goes on this audio experience. So, let's go.
It's still the best.
All right, guys, welcome to the Savoir Faire audio experience. Thank you guys for listening, following, and subscribing. We appreciate you. We see you. Keep coming at us and sharing our content. We always like to bring kind of unique and interesting people to you guys on the podcast, really great articles. And every once in a while, I find someone in my own network or in my own system that is doing something really kind of powerful, and I want to bring light to it. And so today we're speaking with Bridget Mulroy. Hello, Bridget.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's cool to connect with you. Bridget is a journalist and a publicist, and she is deep diving into some really interesting topics. So this is not for kids, this topic today. Normally we say 13 plus, but today don't let the kids listen to our discussion. We're going to definitely talk about some adult topics here, and it's going to be kind of unique. It really is a lot of very educational stuff that Bridget and some friends have put together, and I'm all for kind of sharing the content. So, Bridget, I'm going to deep dive right in this topic with you. We're going to talk about all this stuff. Talk to me about the article that you had published in Social Magazine and what kind of findings you guys, found. Let's just let you introduce the topic here.
All right. Well, thank you again for the lovely intro. And I'm just going to say it first. Calling this a deep dive is putting this ever so mildly. This entire study went along over the course of about 6 months, probably longer. All right, so to answer your question, what kicked this off as a parent, as someone who's seen, I don't know, that's a loaded question. I mean, really and truly, it boils down to being a parent and seeing the shift in, just the tip of the iceberg, social media, how content, sexualized content, has become integrated and normalized on these platforms, how it's, infiltrated society, how kids are susceptible to it. So from there, obviously, jumping onto the sexualized content, what other forms of sexualized content are out there? How is it accessed? How is that access and influencing other people's relationships? I mean, we can go on.
Oh, I'm sure, yeah. I mean, it's very common when you and I were talking briefly before we started recording, too. This really is just about a deep dive into the studies that Bridget and her friends have done on the effects of pornography on humans in general, but more so the generation that's getting exposed to pornography, OnlyFans, sexual content on multiple different platforms, and it is becoming common. And I just want people to know that, from perspective, I think Bridget and I agree that we're not excited about this becoming very common. And that's one of the reasons why we wanted to kind of talk about this topic in deep dive. But Bridget's also written articles about this that are starting to get published, and there are more to come. So I'm excited to see, where this comes. Maybe you can take me back a little bit. I know you did this this study with Mandy, who's an empowering coach or betrayal coach. Talk to me a little bit about how the two of you connected, how this topic came up, and then more about the research. Like, what was the research?
Sure. So, again, maybe about 6 months ago, I was having a conversation with another mom friend of mine, and she was telling me how she found some, I'm not going to call it out, but it was like some very wild search that she'd found on her son's, same age as my son, tablet. And they're, 9-10 years old at the time. So I was really thinking about this. I'm like, dude, am I there right now? Do I need to really start checking the search history and checking the backpacks and stuff like that? You know what I mean? As a parenting, it's not like the parenting milestone I was anticipating for 9-10 years old. So anyways, I had this chat with her, and I was scrolling on Instagram. And actually, it's important to say, because I'm really not super present on social media. So I'm figuring out the algorithm, for writing and everything. I think I've had the account running now for like a year. So, you know, time frame wise, a couple of months ago, I'm trying to figure out like what's on my For You page. And Mandy's video comes up, and it's just, you know, the timing was impeccable because I had been talking to my friend. And Mandy's video, so Mandy, again, the stars aligned. The timing was really perfect. And a switch went off in my brain because, okay, so Mandy is a betrayal coach. She helps primarily women cope with, and betrayal obviously is a generalized term, but specifically cheating, porn addiction. And she does help specifically women, but obviously this topic is not isolated exclusively to women. And that's very important, I think, to share when it comes to the data collection process of this entire study. So while Mandy does help primarily women, and she has an amazing way of targeting this, not targeting the audience, that's not the right word, but just relating to the audience and raising awareness around the issue. But her focus is more romantic relationships. So on the topic of sex, sexualized content, romantic relationships, young children being exposed to this, like I said, the light went off in my head, and that's how I found Mandy.
Mm-hmm. So Mandy had written some content on social media that you came across. That's how you kind of reached out to her and you guys connected on the topic?
Exactly. Yeah. I told her, cool. I was going through, I wanted to start, I felt like I needed to write a story about this. It's obviously like a hot topic, dare I say a taboo topic, but it's something that's not talked about enough. I mean, it certainly is, you know what I mean? There's content and articles and publications and studies out there, but I think just shedding light on these nuanced aspects of the topic. So I hit her with that. I'm like, dude, your content is awesome. You really help bridge the gap between what I'm trying to dive into now. And she was, again, mind you, I just found her on the For You page.
Yeah.
And she was cool enough. We came up with questions together. She ran it. We collected, I think, out of like 500 people. Like, you know, we had a really substantial subject group on this. Yeah. And I'm happy with how everything went down. Mind you, the story's only been published a couple of days ago. And surprise, surprise, like people are reading it. Like, you know what I mean? The content is interesting, for lack of a better word.
No, I think it is interesting, and I'm glad you guys did the study. So the breakdown was, what was the magic number? 500 people that were surveyed basically to answer a bunch of questions, and based on the knowledge of you and Mandy and whoever else was involved, you guys analyzed or basically just built percentages to figure out what was kind of happening in that realm. And that's one of the things that was kind of unique. I mean, so some of the questions, I have access to the questions. So some of the questions were, do you feel watching porn in the form, is a form of cheating? So is, you know, someone watching porn, a part of cheating? And all these people were surveyed, and 96% of the mostly women, you said, that responded to these.
Yes.
Yep. All said yes. Yep. So huge percentage. Another one, has your partner lying about watching porn or having, you know, this kind of secretive aspect affected your relationship? 99% of the people that were surveyed said yes to this.
And that was a loaded question. So I think looking back on it, I want to say there was like 15 to 20 yes or no questions.
Okay.
And then, you know, complete transparency. It was 500 voluntary subjects, men and women. It was more than 50% women, but everybody was voluntary and everybody responded anonymously.
Okay,
so
good.
There were about 15 to 20 yes or no questions. There were 2 multiple choice, like A, B, C, D type of thing. Yep. And then there were 2 or 3 open-ended responses. And when you talk about that last one, so do you feel like discovering your partner's porn usage as a form of cheating? Did it impact your relationship? Like, that is what we could deep dive into, because honestly, if you get to the part with the responses and stuff like that, you're basically reading the same response written differently. Like, so many people were able to feel that and most importantly talk about it, because people don't talk about it. Like I said, society just normalizes it, you know, oh, it's hush hush, taboo, but people are actually affected by it. And it's crazy too, because there's like men and women, good and bad, black and white. Like we could sit here and be like, right, porn's not that good. Not that bad, excuse me, if there's communication in the relationship and everyone's on the same page. Or porn's not that bad if you can talk to your kids about it. But then there's also people on the other side of the combo where like there are negative implications. And because there's such a spectrum, you get men justifying it. Oh, well, women can read gray. What was that? 50 Shades of Grey. Mm-hmm. But, and comparing it, like, this isn't tit for tat. Do you know what I mean? This isn't a competition. This isn't like, well, you said this. This is a very loaded topic.
It's a loaded topic, yeah. But I think the big piece of this is that men and women both that took the survey are clearly with no obligation to put their names out there, which is great because that means you can get some really honest responses.
Exactly.
The strongest parts of the survey that you guys did really was showing that their relationships are 100% affected by someone having a porn aspect. Now, communication is one piece. I completely understand that there are relationships where the men and the women are both, they're communicating well. They're both kind of exposing themselves to that. It's part of their world. They're the exception to the rule, literally, from what we're talking about.
In this case, yes.
And
everyone who came forward had a negative experience.
Exactly.
With porn,
yes.
And that there's no irony in that.
Exactly. But the more focal point that I really wanted to make with, in general, like with Bridget talking about too, is with parents and realizing that if you've got young children that are in their preteens currently right now, this stuff is going to be so common in the next 5 to 7 years if you don't start opening your voice about it, because this is the issue that we're even doing at Savoir, Faire, which is why we wanted to definitely talk with Bridget about the topic. They're deep diving on porn for sure. We're also deep diving into OnlyFans and educating men about why they shouldn't be subscribing to this content, or vice versa. Anyone should be not subscribing to adult content there. And we've really found some mutual ground with the study and this ethical kind of question about what the future holds. It's become way too common. And I've looked up some stuff, which is kind of interesting, going back and forth on this topic. The OnlyFans platform was created originally for musical artists, guys. That's it. That's what it was actually created for. Musical artists to collect their fans and have people over there to monetize for independent music artists, okay? But they had terms and conditions within the platform that allowed anyone to come and share whatever they wanted. And the reason they had that was because they wanted rappers and other artists to be able to say whatever the heck they wanted in lyrics and have that kind of credibility. And that's why the lawyers were involved in their process of setting stuff up. It was the adult industry that then saw this loophole and started putting content there. And when the revenue that these adult industry people were making was far, far more than the musical artists were making for OnlyFans, that defended greed. And then we ran into COVID, where a bunch of people had downtime. Everyone started talking about this topic. It was heavy in the media, and it exploded. OnlyFans actually released articles in 2020 and also 2021 saying that they wanted to do away with adult content. They didn't like being that platform. But when they started analyzing how much money they were going to lose because of it, that's when they decided not to push forward and change the dynamic of the entire app. It had already been branded at that point. They just accepted their fate. So that's how they actually became what they are at this point. But the content is so common everywhere. It's starting to get a little overwhelming. But I want to dive back into the relationship perspective, because this is the study that you guys really kind of focused on and really kind of did a deep dive on. So after you've done all the questions, you've now analyzed all the information, you released your study. What kind of things have you guys been able to kind of really focal in on and say, okay, these are clear points that this brought to attention?
Okay, so the first discovery that, the first epiphany that I'm going to say I had, upon concluding this, was how intensely pornography, sexualized content has infiltrated itself into society in such a way that it's ruining relationships. And we're not just talking about romantic relationships. We're talking about family relationships, educational relationships. and so on. And that's not being talked about enough. And again, like, of course, like you can look it up on Google right now, like porn statistics, you know, and hopefully your search takes you in the right direction. But there are studies out there, but as we go on and as we keep picking the scab on this, more information is coming out. There's a much clearer understanding, at least for me now after doing this, but just generally as time goes on, and even with OnlyFans, as we start to realize, like, with great power comes great responsibility. And now look what happened. You know, it's awareness is key. Again, communication is key. But I'd say the second thing, like the most prolific discovery in this, was that it's not like the porn is, or porn I'm using as a general term just for sexual content, OnlyFans, like with just this whole thing. But that's not the root cause. Like, there are more people who conveyed having issues with the lying and the cheating, and then, you know, hiding certain things related to sexual content exposure is what prompted lying and hiding other things in relationships. And that was really, you know, there's deeper rooted problems, obviously, contributing to any form of addiction. The third really significant aspect of this is how there are medical professionals in 2025 who still refuse to recognize sex or pornography and sex addiction in the realm of addiction. And I spoke with so Mandy is amazing betrayal coach. And I'll be honest, I'm not sure if like that's how she does so much. So I don't know if like that's the proper way to refer to her as.
Yeah, I saw that she was like an empowerment coach, and I think that's more of an accurate term of the stuff that she's actually doing more than betrayal, because betrayal is kind of like a hard word. You're like, what does this actually mean? And so empowerment is really the thing. She's really helping women kind of overcome the nonsense that men kind of put them through, or vice versa. Yeah.
She just has like a nuanced focus though on healing from sexual, I want to say exploitation, like, you know, discovering you know what I mean? Like, I know what she does, and it's more of like an understanding for what, listen, if you're listening right now, go look her up. WTF Do I Do Now podcast, coaching, see for yourself, you'll get it.
Yeah.
But no, like, shameless plug. But no, I'm so grateful. She was such an invaluable asset to the study. Like, it really and truly, like, look her up if this conversation doesn't prompt you to. But no, so there was this other coach, his name's Jeremy. And so I wanted a male perspective on this. And I'd say maybe there were a lot more standout points along this whole journey. But just off the dome, probably the last most relevant aha moment was from the male perspective, again, from Jeremy. And I'll share his info too, obviously, to play devil's advocate and keep both sides fair. Shame. Men feel shame. And I'm not speaking, I'm a woman, all right? So this is, you know, for me to say, it's kind of
I'm a man. Let's talk about it.
Right. No, you know what I mean? But, you know, just from my perspective, like, to me to say, that's just my discovery. I feel like so many anonymous men came forward on this, and even Jeremy validated this as well. Men, and even kind of going back to how the lying and the hiding is what pushes other aspects of a relationship over. And this is with children. This is with partners. You know what I mean? This isn't exclusively to like a romantic dynamic. But men, overall, my understanding is, you know, they feel they need to hide it because they're ashamed of it. Or it's not, but it's a shame. And again, from my understanding, is not like, oh, because I'm looking at something super kinky. It's like, it's deeply rooted in how they grew up, what they were exposed to, starting what age. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's where your deep dive comes in. Because honestly,
it's a psychological aspect. Okay. So
exactly.
From what I've understood about this kind of stuff is, I think you're on the right topic here with talking about your guy and what he's kind of saying his perspective is. There's a shame aspect to it, because we grew up, no matter what age group, realizing like embedded in your psyche, you have morals, period. So watching somebody
men
else,
and women.
yes. And so watching anybody else in an intimate act, which is the porn aspect, is something that you're not going to be excited about, talk about. It's not part of your daily thing, right? It's a personal thing, and it definitely comes into anxiety, depression, addiction. It encompasses all of those things in someone's life. That there's a secretive aspect to that, which is why like we do spend the money on, you know, the local girl that's at the coffee shop that now has an OnlyFans account.
It's easily accessible.
Exactly. So I think that's one of the mental aspects of it is that there are deep down in every human, there is a moral compass, and how far you let that guide you is truly involved in the individual. But when it comes to this particular topic, then the moral compass is there, even though you're absorbing the content in the idea that you know that's supposed to be a private, intimate act, and somehow you're getting exposure to it. And I completely understand the industry of adult industry and the way that they're kind of creating and why they're creating all this stuff. It's because they want to feed the addiction. Yeah, it's no different. It is an addiction, 100%. If people could control it, then it wouldn't exist. People can't control your coffee addiction. You can't control cigarettes. You can't control your weed addiction. Then what I know now. 100%. Yeah. So I think that's really a deep scale piece of this. But I mean, it causes mood swings. And the other part about the relationship aspect is this: if a man has, I'm just going to say men because that's what we're talking about. If men have this secret part of themselves where they're watching content or absorbing content or going to the strip club or whatever the heck you're doing, more specifically probably porn actually. But if you are engaging in this, you're getting a false narrative aspect. There's something lacking in your situation, in your relationship. Most likely communication is the key for the reason why you're going this direction and absorbing this content. And when men kind of feel like, okay, I'm watching this stuff, she doesn't know about this stuff, then it's like being a kid again, and you're trying to figure out, well, if I touch the stove, will I get burned? If I go outside without my parent, will I get in trouble? You're starting to kind of feel the boundaries out in your relationship. If you can get away with this, what else can I get away with, right?
Exactly.
So it becomes kind of a gateway, like a gateway situation to kind of lead people in a negative aspect. And when she finds out about it, and she's going to have a perspective and her own opinion on it, it's either going to be a blow-up conversation where everyone has to talk about it and figure out what's going to change to make it work, or it now becomes an issue, which is what this study has been like really diving into. I think that in some of these situations, there probably are people that are like, absolutely not. If I was with a guy that was watching this stuff, I wouldn't be with him. But there's also
so many women said that.
Yep. And there's probably a perspective as well that is like, yep, this is actually part of our relationship, and this is how it affected our relationship. I think that the study kind of having these bigger numbers where it says 99% of people agreed on this and 96% agreed on this, that's an encompassing thing no matter which direction. Everyone's kind of giving honest opinions because their face and their name are not attached to the response. Like
right. It's regardless of which side of the fence you're on. It's really just like, hey, did you know? The more you know.
Exactly. Yeah. This is
take
very
with this information, do whatever you want with it. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's, you know, I must say I'm very proud of myself for having the courage to come behind and do this. And the only reason I say that, I'm not trying to blow smoke up my own butt, but like, I'm very aware of how biased some of the info out there is. And, you know, there are women out there who, well, she still comes home to me, or I had this in my last relationship and I'll never tolerate this again, or they're totally fine with it. Or, do you know what I mean? Like, there's no right answer. And I think that's the most important thing, too, is that, like, I can sit here and say, like, or as a parent or as, you know, a partner, whatever. Like, of course, I want to have my own perspective on this. And, like, you know, any true case study, like, I got to keep my opinion out of it. And I think that's where I'm going to dial it back a little bit, too, is because the most significant thing, again, was just the sheer number of people who all had the same opinion. And then how that essentially sent me down a rabbit hole and wanting to find out, well, why is it? You know, why do they feel this way? So obviously it all kind of brought it back that way.
Yeah, I mean,
But
it's this all has deeper things that everyone's heard. These like
yeah.
these really major topics that are kind of floating around now, like hookup culture and all this other stuff. I mean,
Oh my
this
God. Yeah. Those
this
apps now and stuff.
yes,
It's
these are
becoming
all
so
part of it.
normalized.
Yeah, and
Right.
it's just unfortunate, right? Because I'm at the age where like getting the first kiss on the first night was a huge deal, or even just hugging them goodbye after a first date was a big deal. Compared
Or
to now,
yes, physical interactions with people. But it doesn't even
yes,
have to be a date. Like, do you know what I mean? Like people use I forget the name of it. There's an app now that like people could use for dating, but they use it to make friends. And it's like you are instead of pardon, I don't want to curse, but like instead of going to the bar or instead of going to the coffee shop, you're on an app arrange. Do you know what I mean? It's just crazy,
exactly.
like the shift and you know.
Well,
But again,
yeah, I
go
think
go go.
yeah, I was saying I think the push and really the focus of why you and I are having this discussion today was that this is becoming very very common ground, and
Oh yeah.
it's not just it is generational in the idea that it's becoming more common to a younger generation. Um,
But
I
it's
saw
on the current generation to kind of mitigate it. You know what
yeah,
I mean? I'm like recognize the issue, and I think that's actually kind of bringing it back to just like what are some of the key points, the main findings is when it comes to medical professionals not considering this an addiction. Like I said, there are some people out there who are okay with it, and if all the boxes are ticked in their unique situation, then let them live. But
mm-hmm,
if someone is relentlessly subscribing to OnlyFans, and like that's even a gray area now too, because like we were talking about before, you have OnlyFans where it's cooking channels, it's not sexual content, and that's how OnlyFans tried to reel it back in a little bit after the.
yeah, after their
But
blow up, yep,
yeah, I think so. If like whether it's OnlyFans, whether it's going to the strip club every day after work before you go home to your wife, whether it's hiding porn, not hiding, whatever it is, someone could have a porn addiction and be open about it with their partner, like case by case. Okay. Ultimately, it boils down to someone recognizing that, hey, I'm engaging in this behavior and it is not benefiting me. And then it's on them to take the appropriate steps to make or break the problem. And, I'm also going to bring it back. So it was Jeremy Lipkowitz, and he's
mm-hmm,
the male perspective life coach. And you can look him up on Instagram too, Jeremy Lipkowitz. And he helps men deal with, confronting the potential addiction and then using, his own personal experiences and coping mechanisms to get past it. And he has a ton of success stories. So like, that's ultimately it. Like there is hope out there. There is, it just takes a little self-reflection and stop ignoring it. Not speaking to anyone specifically, but just like if someone recognizes in society, in their own life, that like, hey, this is kind of weird. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah. It is becoming very common, and unfortunately, this is
Yeah.
a heated topic where there's so much more detail. So what I think we should probably do, Bridget,
The
is
part 2, 3, 4. I know,
there's
right?
gonna be a part 2 to this conversation because it's something
Cheers to
people are
that.
gonna want to feel talk more about, and I think there's going to be other studies. Obviously, you're working on other projects on the topic. So I want people to take
Yes.
some time to go check out Mandy, check out Jeremy. I'll put their Instagram links in the bio on this
You're great.
conversation, as well
Yeah, this is
as
no shameless plug. I'm just very grateful for their
completely.
input
But
on
it's
this.
good for people to go and read some perspectives
Yeah,
and
do
see
this.
perspectives.
Listen,
Yeah.
do the research yourself, guys. I stand by. All right, as a journalist, as like, do the research yourself. Go and take the time and look it up and come to your own conclusion. Do not let two people yapping on a podcast, tell you, oh, this is good, this is bad. Like, everyone, please do your due diligence on this and make your own informed decision. But also, like, this was concluded over a good chunk of time, so I'd like to think we know what we're talking about on this. But no, seriously, like, go and explore this realm because not enough people are talking about it. And I'm so grateful to Social Lifestyle Magazine for running this, and then the other stories that we have coming out. Like, I'm excited to talk about this in such a good way. And I don't know if we're live right now, or if you're recording, if you have people kind of commenting or whatever. Please reach out to me at Bridget Mulroy Writes on Instagram and tell me your story. Tell me how you feel about this. Like, I'm soaking it up right now because, again, there's so many things that we could talk about. There's so many aspects of it, and none of it is not interesting. Literally every aspect of this is prompted. So let's go. Let's do it.
Yeah, sounds good. Well, I definitely appreciate you finding some time for me today, Bridget, and having this conversation. We'll definitely try to get you back here for a part 2 because there's a lot to learn. So, but again, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And yeah, just keep grinding on this topic because there's a lot to learn here.
Cheers to that. Robert, thank you so much for having me. This has been such a great chat. I cannot wait to talk about this again.
Yeah, we'll definitely do it soon, I promise.
Lovely. All right, I'm looking forward to it. All right, enjoy the rest of your day. Bye, guys.
Thank you for listening to the show. Please take a minute to head over to www.savoir.com and subscribe to our publication.